We're going to improv a title, and we're going to work through a little bit of a myth here. So how many technical writers do we have in the room? Know your audience? Oh, there's a few of you. That's great. So we hear there's a lot of myths in technical writing. So I'll introduce myself. I'm David Ryan. I'm a technical... Actually, that's the wrong slide. I'm a technical writer. And I've started a company called Macklin about a year ago. We spun out of Red Hat. So hi to all my Red Hat family here. Wow. And the one heckler. Thank you to the Apple employee. So in my time starting a technical writing company, I realized there's a lot of things to learn. So we're going to learn together. So we're going to work out some of the myths that we hear in our industry. So crowdsourcing the top 10 myths we hear about technical writing. This is interactive. So we're going to, I'll ask you a question, you'll help me work out whether it's true or not. Whether it's true or not. Okay, so the first one. Nobody reads documentation. Is this true or false? Quick, quick, quick. That was a good guess. Because there's actually one person ever who's read technical writing. And in fact, because she wrote it. So shout outs to all the early adopters out there. Okay, docs like code. What do we think about this? True, that's good. And Gentle, are you in the crowd? It's only $10. Come on, this is one of the most iconic technical writers in our community. Has pushed the docs like code progress. So jump on the Amazons. All right, just let the developer do it. What do we think about this one? Are there any developers in the crowd? Do you want to? Oh, well, you're saying false as well. Okay. It turns out it's true because nobody has more empathy for the user than the person that's getting angry at their code all day. Think about it. All right. You only need Microsoft Word. No, I can't even pretend with this one. Okay, so docs maintain themselves. No, true. Are there any historians in the crowd? Now, I haven't read about the Library of Alexandria all the way to the end, but the beginning of the wiki article suggests that it ended really well. Okay, so technical writing is easy. Actually, I don't even remember what I had for this one, so yes, no, true, false? It's actually true. Because people like Tom Johnson are teaching us all we need to know about technical writing. So shout outs to Tom, wherever you are in the crowd. You don't need documentation because products are now intuitive. We do hear this one, right? My company makes technical writing software, and we are venture capital backed. So when we pitched to investors in Silicon Valley, which is a wonderful place, they told us you don't need technical writing because companies like Apple now make fully intuitive products that you never need to read manuals for, despite the 300,000 magazines and different products coming out to teach you how to use these things. So remember that. I love this. Boom, who needs to hire technical writers? Doxler didn't happen. True, false? No, 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 you're wrong. You're wrong, you're wrong. You know why you're wrong? Because I forgot to put the "it" on the sticker. I tried to explain it that I'm Australian and we shorten things. I'm sorry, I forgot. But I did register both domain names. Oh, what's this one? Ditto will solve all our content problems. No, because Lego is fun. I made myself laugh with that one, so thank you. We need a good technical writing conference. Yeah, really, 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 really? Because you have one.
So I've got this passion for this idea that all communication has an emotional output. No matter what you're doing, if you're dealing with another human being, and raise your hand if you deal with other human beings. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. It turns out that we're all pretty messy, and as a result, we're all human. And we all have a lot of emotions that go into and come out of whatever experiences we're having. All communication causes emotions. Here are some of many, many, many messy emotions that we have. And the idea is that shepherding useful emotions is part of our job as technical writers. It's also part of our job, honestly, with anything that interacts with users, interacts with human beings. So developers, everyone, this is a thing. But when it comes to technical writing, I think, well, if my job is to craft emotions, or if part of my job is to craft emotions, I should be thinking about that. It's not just for fiction and games, which is one of my other passions and used to be my career, but is also for, honestly, things like blog posts about fixing microwaves. Not every positive emotion is good. If you're way overconfident about something, like, yeah, I'm confident, that's a great emotion, I've got this. Well, that's not great because you might very well irradiate yourself. Not every negative emotion is bad either. On some of the API docs I've done, I've worked hard to create apprehension in documentation, just to say, if you really, 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 really want to do this, game on, but be very, very careful. So creating apprehension to make people pay attention to it. It is a negative emotion, but a useful negative emotion. And why this matters, it's because we're dealing with human beings. And because we're dealing with human beings, we should be thinking about the end result of what we're communicating and how it affects them so they can do whatever job, whatever task, understand whatever concept that we're trying to explain. I'm doing an unconference at 2 p.m. about how working in book-based games made me a technical writer. Feel free to drop by, or don't, I'm not your dad. I exist on the internet. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks. I'm not mirroring my screen, so I actually have to look here. Lightning talk. So I'm John Mulhausen. I'm the lead technical writer at Docker. It's nice to meet all you guys. I wanted to talk about under-resourced tech writing groups. Is anyone here in a docs team that's under-resourced? Yes. So I'd like to empower you today because there's cool technology that can help you build better tools for yourself. So we start with the common problems around docs. So setup, staging, and publishing flows are hard to set up. Installing stuff locally is time-consuming and creates fragility. You hear, well, it works on my machine. Getting everyone to see what a proposed docs change would look like live is hard to set up in a shareable, reproducible way. Docs teams are frequently under-resourced and don't have a lot of tools, support, and manual publishing is a bottleneck. It's distracting and delay-causing, and people are forgetful. Like, oh, I forgot to publish that, sorry. So I'm proposing that we use portable, shareable containers to make your own tool chain and empower yourself, hence technical writer ops. So what a container is, for those who don't know, it's a running executable, but it's portable and isolated from the host system. So more precisely, it's a runtime instance of an image, like an ISO image, or like you would use in a VM. So if you were to do something like Docker run MySQL, that downloads MySQL, and without installing anything on your host machine, it just runs it. It's not like VMs that have the whole OS in the image. It's just a portable copy of an app. So that's what containers are. Staging, using containers to stage. So you can use containers to have install-free staging. So at Docker, we use GitHub Pages. We package an image of GitHub Pages for contributors to use. We are open source. And so if you were to do something like clone our docs source and then make your edits, and then do Docker run docstage, then you get a local host instance of the docs, and it's just like that. And so a new user can be up and running as a contributor in moments. Sorry, I see people trying to take pictures, but I gotta go fast. Containers don't just have executables in them. You can also cram files in there. Files such as the output of your docs build, just for example. So if you want to containerize your docs, you would do something like this. You would go Docker build, tag it with current docs in the current directory. A Docker build looks at a file called Dockerfile in that directory, which might have things like this. It says, go get Jekyll for me, copy everything current directory to where Jekyll needs it, expose it to the world, and run, build, and serve. That's a real Docker file, like you could actually do that. So then after you push the result of that build, then any machine in the world can say, Docker run current docs, and they'll run your docs, just like they would on your machine. So the portability is kind of being shown here a little bit, the reproducibility of the environment. Running your containers in production is where it gets really fun. So any VM can run a container, but why not automate a bit? We use Docker Cloud at Docker. Obviously, we eat our own dog food. Docker Cloud gets permission from you to manage your cloud provider account, whether that's Amazon Web Services or whatever. And then you can use those permissions you've granted it to manage those resources. So you can create VMs and clusters. And then it'll refresh container images for you. So if your project's up on GitHub, then it detects a change and rebuilds. And then after rebuilding, it's like, oh, there's a new build, and I'm going to deploy it out on the VMs that I'm managing. So the result is a change is detected up on GitHub. This is from the community or you. An image is immediately built, and an image is immediately deployed. And I don't touch anything, which is great. So here it is, like integrating with GitHub. Here it is getting configured. And here it is deploying the change. Oh no, starting a build and then deploying the change. The result is great. People love contributing. Community engagement going up means that the virtuous cycle of feedback is alive and healthy. One use case of that was the hackathon. This is our technical debt growing. That's 1,000 open labels on bugs at the top line there. We got it down to, we nominated 158 bugs and got it down to 0 because people could just dive in and work on it. We incentivized with prizes, and I'm going to show you some of the prizes. See the dramatic drop-off? These are things people actually wanted from us as prizes. A wall clock. 2 people wanted wall clocks. I'm a fan of the Flask because meetings. And it's really fun tech, and we have a lot of fun. So we're hiring. Hit me up. John.Mulhausen on the Slack, and john@docker.com. Thanks a lot.
Hey folks, how you doing? Love conferences. You know, I love getting up, the luxury of getting up at 7:30 Eastern time every day. So, you know, documentarians is a new word in my vocabulary that I'm injecting in there, and so I think of myself as a teacher who is a documentarian, and it helps me to humanize my audience, my students, you know. Some of the impediments to that I find are, you know, just that our days are dominated by technology. You know, it's why we have our jobs. It's what we use to accomplish our jobs. It's what we write about, and it's an enabler to be more effective in our jobs. But technology is not why we succeed when we're successful. It's because we teach. Sometimes technology can be a barrier to knowing who your users are and having a connection with your students. It can demand so much of our time that it can obscure the essence of our mission at times. And our mission, I mean my mission. This is how I view it. I think teaching is the essence of what I do. I need to teach my students how to be successful. Teaching and learning, it's an essential human interaction. It's teach, you learn, you teach, and you learn. It's a rinse and repeat cycle. Without teaching and learning, humankind as we know it wouldn't be where it is. I would not be doing this. To help me, what I've done is to, I think of my favorite teacher. So everybody close their eyes, bear with me here, and think of your favorite teacher. And it doesn't need to be a formal teacher. My favorite teacher is Miss Muscat. She was my first grade teacher. She made me feel safe by being reassuring, by providing rules and a framework for learning and order in the classroom. She made me feel valued by being empathetic. She was understanding. She listened. And she encouraged me to try new things, to do things I hadn't done before. She provided guidance and instructions. And she celebrated my successes. And that celebration was a smile or a laugh. It was awesome. I made this big mobile of these really fancy snowflakes with paper. Every time I did something really good, that's what I got. So how do I apply that in what I do? You have to know your students. You have to understand what it is they're trying to do. You have to convey to them that you understand, so you're empathetic with them. You have to know your use cases. You have to know your students. You have to know and tell them what it is that they're trying to achieve, what their pain point is, and how your product is going to solve that for them. You provide them with the instructions, the guidance on how it's going to be done, and you tell them, if we know something can go wrong at times, and this is what you do if it goes wrong. So it's reassuring, it's safety, and then you celebrate their success. And you can do that in different ways. I do it by getting out in the community, congratulating people, looking at code samples, and interacting with the students. So, thank you.
Hello. I'm a former TechDocs manager, and these are just 5 ideas that I wanted to convey about TechDocs management. I realize they're also about other kinds of management because there is a huge overlap in the way people manage doc people and other people, but there are some special considerations, many of which Kenzie's talk covered, and she does not manage tech writers, she manages non-tech writer people, but hopefully some of it is applicable. So thing 1 is really know your people. If you end up managing writers, you should really know what their work style is, what they're capable of, what motivates them, what kinds of strengths they have and what kinds of weaknesses they have, where they are in their lives, and so on and so forth. It's funny, when I looked up, when I was Googling for random clip art, there were all these terrible pictures of managers with octopus arms reaching out to, and the people were the arms, and I was like, no, no, your people are not your arms, your people are individual humans with individual things that drive them. So please don't treat them as interchangeable robots, because they're not. As someone was saying in an earlier unconference talk, that incredibly tedious bit of maintenance work may be wonderful and refreshing to some people, and intolerable to others. So find out who your people are and what they want to do. The next big thing about managing the writers, and I think this maybe especially is true if you're not a writer managing writers, is be their advocate, because it can be really isolating, as a lot of people here know, to be a writer in an organization that has a handful of writers and a gazillion kinds of other job functions. And very often, people don't know what writers do. Or what the information people do. They often say, can you give me some verbiage? Or can you pretty this up? And that's as far, they don't know about the other analytical and planning functions and maintenance functions of writers. So make sure that that information is widely available and socialized all around your company. If you're the manager, you need to show the value of people. You need to have graphs and charts of how they are working with other people in their company, what value they are providing. If one of your writers does something great, you should write a blog post about it or boast about it in any forums that can get them some public recognition. And generally talk about process and talk about what writers are doing and what value they're creating all the time, because it's really a black box in your organization more often than not. You have to have a network to make information. You have people you're getting information from. You have people who are reviewing your information. You have to get people to talk to you, even if you're a big introvert. And so if you're the manager of individual writers, they're gonna have relationships with people that you don't, probably. They're going to be looking around the organization. You need to encourage them to reach out and encourage them to have their own individual relationships. Don't get in the middle of that. Don't be you can encourage people and introduce them to people and make suggestions about where they can get information, but don't get in the middle of those networks, because those networks are how information flows. They need to have that. But you need to be their backstop, because relationships have risk. And as soon as people start seeing the value in writing, the value in information, and know that you are good at it and they can help you, they're gonna ask you for stuff that takes time. Some of it you won't want to do. Hey, could you update my resume? No. So as your manager, you need your writers to be free to say, gosh, I really don't know, but I'll have to ask Marya how the resourcing is working out. And then if they say, but you have to do it anyway, then your manager is the bad guy. And finally, be giving people feedback all the time. One of the other things that happens in writing organizations is that you don't get a lot of feedback from the larger organization. So as a manager, let people know how they're doing. And that's good feedback and bad feedback. It can be really casual. Talk to them about the results of what they're doing. Say, hey, when you did that thing, then customers were really happy with it. Or I heard from the VP that it was really good, so do that some more. And likewise, if not, yes, I actually found this clip art for feedback on the web. Okay, I am done. Thank you.
So I'm going to give one of those god-awful thought leadership-y, people-y things. But have you ever had that moment where they came out with a new template and you disagreed with it and you tried to go to the all-hands meeting and shout out that it was terrible and maybe that was a bad idea and that's why you're looking for a new job now? So, like, you should pick your battles, is what I'm saying. And one of the first battles that you have to figure out is, like, most of our battles we fight within ourselves. Like, we have a lack of confidence, we're not quite sure about it, or we're overconfident, we're like, I'm right, I'm right, I'm right, you know? And you probably shouldn't do that either, right? So one of the things that I suggest is that you sort it out. You list out the thing, like, what do I have to do? What is all of the work that I have to do that's related to this thing? What do I want to do? What's the big desire, the crazy cool thing that I want me or my team to do? And then you have to narrow that shit down. Sorry for the S word. You have to narrow it down because you have to know what can we do as a team or what can I do as an individual. And all of that will inform the battle to come because generally we do all these things as a team. We rarely battle or we rarely produce or we rarely create as individuals. We all do those things as individuals, but the thing that ends up on the page or in the book or on the video is generally something we produce together as a team. And so that's an essential thing to remember when you're battling. When you're going in with an idea that you think is right and other people think is wrong, you got to remember that you're a member of a team or an organization and that matters. And then also remember, you're not in there to fight. You're not in there to win. You're in there to create a best possible solution or the best possible idea should always win. So battle better. One of the things that we often don't do is we focus on the personality and not the issue. We go into a fight instead of a battle. We go in there and we like, I don't like the way that Bob and Jane have this set up. And we have that in our own head. We might not say that in the meeting, but we have it in our own head. And we're like, I don't like Bob anyway. And so that's critical. You will fail at almost all battles when you do it that way. Think about the issues. I think this information architecture works better. I think this video works better. I think this copy works better. I think this template works better, right? Like, what is it you're talking about? Back that up with data, right? Like, I am not a believer in data-driven decisions. I believe in data-informed decisions. Let the data inform what you do. And that also backs up your case. And then pick the right time to battle, right? Like, don't do that in your all-hands meeting, right? Like, wait till a sparring session. A lot of us are in companies or in organizations where we have, like, pre-proscribed times to battle, right? Like, we have stakeholders meetings and status meetings and all these different places where you can bring your idea to the table and it's appropriate and all of the right people are there. And so that's pick the right time. And then go global. A lot of us work in distributed companies. And so get everybody to dial into pick your video platform. And like one of the things, so Atlassian acquired Trello. And one of the things that the Trellists did is that they would have meetings where even if they were all in the same building, they would all dial in individually because that took the power away from the big like office room and all the individual Trellos mostly remotely, most of the people are remote. So it takes the power from the one room that has 6 people in it, and it gives the power to everybody. And so try that while you're battling. I know I've tried it on my team, and it's worked wonders. It gives everybody. And then finally, letting go is not quitting, right? Like we, generally speaking, in software and in technology, we work in iterative processes. So trust your team. So if you lost that battle, trust that you didn't lose the war, right? Like trust that you're going to come back to it and you're going to validate. Like did that work? Did it not work? How did it go? What worked and what didn't work? And then finally, take what you learn and do what we do. Iterate, revise. Writing is all about revision. And so are ideas, and so is creativity. And we're always churning and churning and churning. So if you lost the battle, don't fear. Like, just keep iterating. Thank you.